The moment my wife's boss called me just a mechanic in front of 50 elite guests, laughing at my black skin like I was some kind of joke, he had no idea he was sealing his own fate. See, while everyone at that glittering rooftop party saw a simple garage owner with oil under his fingernails, what they didn't know was that I secretly owned the parent company that controlled every single one of their careers, including his. My own wife was so embarrassed by me that night, choosing her image over my dignity, that she didn't even defend me when her racist boss humiliated me in front of her colleagues. But sometimes the greatest revenge isn't loud. It's silent, calculated, and absolutely devastating. What happened next would cost him everything, force my wife to choose between love and status, and prove that respect isn't something you can buy with a fancy title. If you're watching this from anywhere in the world, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this story of quiet justice will leave you questioning everything you think you know about power, marriage, and the price of dignity. The elevator doors opened like curtains on a stage I never wanted to be on. Golden light spilled out from the rooftop, catching the last hour of sun over the city. My dark jacket felt stiff against my shoulders. I'd pressed it twice this morning. Sloane had noticed the wrinkles yesterday. "Remember what I told you," Sloane whispered, her hand light on my arm. Her voice carried that edge she got when work was on her mind. "Just smile and nod. Let me do the talking." I nodded. My hands felt wrong without grease under the nails, 3 scrubs with the pumice soap, but I could still feel the ghost of motor oil. That was my world down there in the garage. This glass tower belonged to someone else. The rooftop opened up like a jewelry box, white tables with real flowers, women in dresses that cost more than I made in a month, men in suits that fit like they were born in them. Everyone held champagne glasses like they were born holding those too. "There's Grant," Sloane said, and her voice got bright and sharp. "He's been wanting to meet you." Grant Ellison stood near the edge of the rooftop, his back to the city lights starting to twinkle below. Even from across the room, he looked like money. His suit was the kind that didn't have a price tag because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. His smile was the same way. "Sloane's told me so much about you," he'd said when she brought me over. But his eyes moved over me like I was a car with the wrong paint job. I watched her work the room. She was good at it. Real good. She knew exactly what to say to make people laugh. Exactly how long to hold their hand when she shook it. Exactly when to lean in close like they were sharing secrets. My phone buzzed. "Deshaun. Good luck tonight, man. Remember you don't owe them nothing." I typed back quick. "Thanks. Talk later." Deshaun was out on a tow run. Probably pulling some rich guy's BMW out of a ditch while I stood here pretending I belonged on a rooftop that cost more than both our shops combined. "You must be Marcus," I turned, an older woman with silver hair and a smile that never reached her eyes. She looked like Sloane, but harder around the edges, like someone had taken everything soft about my wife and polished it away. "Victoria Whitmore," she said, holding out her hand. "Sloane's mother." I shook it. Her grip was firm, but she pulled back quick. Her eyes dropped to my hands for just a second, long enough for me to notice. "Oil under the nails?" she asked, tilting her head like she was asking about the weather. "I scrubbed them clean," I said. "Of course you did." She smiled that non-smile again. "It's just so hard to get completely clean, isn't it? That kind of work." Before I could answer, someone laughed nearby. Not a real laugh, the kind people use when they want everyone else to know they got a joke you didn't. "You brought your mechanic?" Grant's voice carried across the circle of people around us. He was looking right at me, but talking to Sloane like I wasn't standing there. That smile of his had gotten wider. The group went quiet. Not dead quiet, but that special kind of quiet that happens when people smell blood in the water. Champagne glasses stopped moving. Eyes turned our way. I felt my jaw tighten. My hands wanted to curl into fists, but I kept them loose at my sides. I'd promised Sloane I wouldn't make a scene. Grant, Sloane said, her voice bright as glass. You're such a kidder. More laughter from the circle. Victoria's mouth twitched up at the corners. She was enjoying this. I swallowed what I wanted to say, swallowed it hard, for Sloane, because this was her world and her career, and I'd promised not to mess it up for her. But I watched. I watched who laughed and who looked away. I watched who thought this was funny and who thought it was cruel. I filed it all away in the back of my mind where I kept things I'd deal with later. Marcus does beautiful work, a woman's voice said from behind me, with his hands. I turned. She was Asian, maybe 35, with kind eyes and a quiet smile. Her dress was expensive but not flashy. Her handshake was firm. Ivy Park, she said, chief of staff at the holding company. Marcus Cole. I was careful to keep my voice steady. I know who you are. Something in the way she said it made me look at her closer. Like there was more to that sentence she wasn't saying out loud. Grant was already moving on to someone else's conversation. The moment was over for him, just another little joke to spice up the evening. But Ivy was still looking at me with those careful eyes. Your work is very respected, she said quietly, in certain circles. Sloane appeared at my elbow, her face flushed from the heat and the champagne and the effort of keeping everything smooth. Having a good conversation? Just introducing myself, Ivy said. Your husband has an interesting background. Oh, well, he's very good with cars, Sloane said, like that explained everything about me worth knowing. Ivy nodded slowly. I'm sure he's very good with many things. The party flowed around us, more introductions, more small talk, more careful smiles and careful words. I stood at Sloane's side and played my part, the quiet husband, the plus one, the mechanic who cleaned up nice enough for one evening, but I caught Ivy watching me from across the room, and when our eyes met, she gave me the smallest nod, like she knew something the rest of them didn't. The sun finished setting while we made small talk about nothing. The city lights came on below us, millions of them stretching to the horizon, beautiful and cold at the same time. Let me get you boys another drink, a waiter said, appearing with a fresh tray of champagne. Boys? Not men. Boys? I took the glass and said thank you, because that's what you do when you're playing a part. But I was starting to wonder how long I could keep playing it. Grant drifted back over as the evening wore on. He had that loose, confident way of moving that comes with too much champagne and not enough consequences. So Marcus, he said, leaning against the railing like he owned it. Sloane tells me you run a little garage. Little garage. Like the 23 years I'd spent learning every engine ever made was just a hobby. Like the business I'd built from nothing was cute. I do mechanical work, I said. That's great, really great. He nodded like he meant it. We need people who work with their hands. Someone's got to fix our cars, right? The group around us chuckled. Not mean, exactly. Just amused. Like Grant had said something clever about the natural order of things. The Bentley's been making a funny noise, one of the women said. Maybe Marcus could take a look. More chuckles. I felt Sloane's hand find my arm. A warning squeeze. I specialize in American muscle cars mostly, I said. Keep it light. Keep it easy. Don't give them what they want. Of course you do, Grant said, and something in his voice made everyone laugh a little harder. I excused myself to get some air, which was funny since we were already outside, 40 floors above the street, but I needed space between me and that circle of faces. I walked to the far edge of the rooftop where the noise was quieter and the lights of the city spread out below like scattered diamonds. Real diamonds, not the fake kind people wear to impress each other. Beautiful view. I turned. Ivy had followed me. She stood a few feet away, looking out at the city instead of at me. It is, I said. I grew up in a neighborhood you can see from here, she said, pointing toward a cluster of lights to the east. My father worked 2 jobs to get me through school, janitor during the day, security guard at night. I didn't ask why she was telling me this. Sometimes people just need to say true things out loud. What does he think of all this? I gestured toward the party behind us. He's proud, but he still calls me every Sunday to make sure I haven't forgotten where I come from. She smiled, but it was sad around the edges. Some days, I'm not sure I deserve his faith. We stood quiet for a minute, watching the traffic move through the streets below, tiny headlights flowing like blood through the city's veins. Can I ask you something? I said. She nodded. Earlier, when you said you knew who I was, what did you mean? Ivy looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding something important. There are things about this company that might surprise you, she said carefully, about who really makes the decisions. Before I could ask what she meant, Sloane appeared beside us. There you are, she said, slipping her arm through mine. I've been looking everywhere. Just getting some air, I said. We should probably head back, Sloane said. Grant's about to give a speech. Ivy smiled at both of us. It was lovely meeting you, Marcus. I hope we'll have a chance to talk more soon. She walked back toward the crowd, leaving me with more questions than answers. Grant's speech was everything you'd expect, thanks to the team, thanks to the clients, thanks to the bright future ahead of us all. He held his champagne glass high and everyone applauded at the right moments. But when he got to the part about the people who make it all possible, his eyes found mine across the crowd, and his smile got just a little wider. To the people who keep us running, he said, raising his glass toward me. We couldn't do it without you. The crowd turned to see who he was toasting. When they saw me, they raised their glasses too, polite smiles all around, the mechanic being recognized for his service. I raised my glass back, because what else do you do? But I didn't drink. The party started winding down after that. People began checking phones and making excuses about early meetings. The magic hour was over, and reality was calling. In the elevator going down, Sloane leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. That went well, she said. I looked at her, really looked at her. My wife, who I'd met 3 years ago when her tire went flat outside my shop, who'd laughed when I offered to patch her designer jeans after she tore them on the wheel well, who'd kissed me for the first time with grease still on my hands. You think that went well? I asked. She straightened up. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just asking. The elevator counted down floors in silence. 20, 15, 10. You were a little stiff up there, she said finally. People were trying to be friendly. Friendly. Yes, friendly. Grant was trying to include you in the conversation. Is that what we're calling it? Marcus. Her voice got that sharp edge again. Don't make this bigger than it is. The elevator opened on the garage level. Our car was waiting where the valet had parked it, a black BMW that Sloane had bought before we met. I'd never driven it. She'd never asked me to. We drove through the city in silence. Streetlights flashed by the windows like frames in an old movie. I watched the late-night workers heading home from their shifts, security guards and cleaning crews and hospital staff, real people doing real work. I need you to understand something, Sloane said as we pulled into her building's garage. Tonight was important. For my career, for us. I understand. Do you? Because sometimes I feel like you don't get how hard I've worked to get where I am. I parked the car and turned off the engine. In the quiet, I could hear the building's ventilation system humming, the sound of money working even when it was sleeping. I get it, I said. I understand perfectly. We took the elevator up to her penthouse, 42 floors above the city, where the air was thin and the view was perfect and everything was exactly the way it should be. Except for me. The penthouse was all glass and steel and clean lines, like living inside a jewelry box, beautiful and cold and empty of anything that might leave a mark. I stood by the window looking out at the city while Sloane got ready for bed. This high up, the streets looked like diagrams, clean and organized, and nothing like the messy reality down there where people actually lived. "Can I ask you something?" I said when she came back. "Of course." "When Grant called me your mechanic tonight, how did that make you feel?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I think you're reading too much into it." "Am I?" "Marcus, Grant is Grant. He says things sometimes. It doesn't mean anything." "What if it does mean something? What do you want me to say? That I should have made a scene? Started a fight at my company party? I want you to say that it bothered you. That when someone talks to your husband like he's not worth the air he breathes, it makes you angry. It's just words, Marcus." "No," I said. "It's not just words." I walked to the couch and sat down, started unlacing my shoes, the dress shoes I'd bought special for tonight and would probably never wear again. "What are you doing?" "I'm sleeping out here." "Why?" "Because I don't want to embarrass anyone." "That's dramatic." I looked up at her, my beautiful wife standing in the middle of her perfect apartment, looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "Respect first," I said. "Everything else comes after that." She stared at me for a long moment, then she turned and walked to the bedroom. I heard the door close soft behind her. I stretched out on the couch and stared at the ceiling. The building was quiet except for the whisper of climate control and the distant hum of traffic far below. My phone buzzed. "Deshaun, you good?" I stared at the text for a long time. Then I typed back, "Later," because I wasn't sure what good meant anymore, and I wasn't sure when later would come, but I was starting to get a feeling that everything was about to change. The city sparkled outside the window like scattered promises, beautiful and far away and nothing I could hold in my hands. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but Ivy's words kept echoing in my head. "There are things about this company that might surprise you." What kinds of things? And why was she telling me? I had questions, more every hour, and something told me the answers were going to change everything. Morning came gray and quiet. Coffee dripped in the machine while the city woke up 42 floors below. Sloane moved around the kitchen like she was dancing to music I couldn't hear, all sharp movements and careful precision. "I have the donor meeting this morning," she said without looking at me. "The one I told you about." I nodded, poured coffee into 2 cups, set hers on the counter where she could reach it. "If you could just—" She stopped, started again. "For my career, Marcus, if you could let last night go, just for now. Let it go. Please. This meeting is important. These people, they talk. If word gets around that there was drama at the party—" "What kind of drama?" "You know what I mean?" I did know what she meant. The wrong kind of drama. The kind that happened when people like me didn't stay in their place. "Respect isn't a calendar item, Sloane." Her phone rang. She grabbed it like it was saving her from drowning. "Mom?" "Yes, I know it's early." She walked to the window, talking in the bright voice she used for family calls. "Brunch sounds lovely. Who else will be there?" I listened to half the conversation. Something about the right people and good connections and how important it was to be seen with the right crowd. When she hung up, I was putting on my jacket. "Where are you going?" "Home." "This is your home too?" I looked around the penthouse. Glass and steel and nothing that belonged to me except the toothbrush in the bathroom and the change of clothes in the dresser. "No," I said. "It's not." I set her keys on the counter next to her coffee cup. The keys to the BMW and the building and the life she'd built without me. Marcus, please, can we talk about this tonight? I'll be at the shop. I took the elevator down 42 floors to street level. The doorman nodded like nothing had changed, like men left their wives' keys on marble counters every morning. Outside, the city was waking up. Real people heading to real jobs, the smell of exhaust and coffee and something fried from a food cart on the corner. I walked 6 blocks to where I'd parked my bike, a 1987 Harley that I'd rebuilt from the frame up. She started on the first try, like always. The engine's rumble was honest, no pretense, no apologies. I rode across town to my shop. The garage bay opened with a familiar groan of metal on metal. Inside, it smelled like motor oil and work and truth. I sat on a wooden crate that had held brake pads and pulled out my phone. Scrolled to Ivy's number. She'd given me her card before we left the party, pressing it into my hand when Sloane wasn't looking. We should talk, I typed. The answer came back fast. Corner Diner on 5th. 1 hour. I put the phone away and looked around my shop. This was real. This was mine. Every tool had a story. Every stain on the concrete had a memory. But for the first time in years, it didn't feel like enough. I wanted answers. And I had a feeling Ivy Park was the woman who could give them to me. The diner was the kind of place that had seen better decades. Red vinyl booths, patched with duct tape, coffee that had been sitting too long, regulars who knew each other's stories and kept them secret. Ivy was already there when I walked in. Back booth, facing the door. 2 cups of coffee already cooling on the table. "Thank you for coming," she said as I slid in across from her. "Thank you for asking me to." She studied my face for a moment. "How much do you know about corporate structures, Marcus?" "I know how to fix the cars the executives drive." She smiled, but it wasn't condescending. "That's more than you might think." A waitress came over, coffee refills, and did we want anything to eat? We said no thanks and waited for her to walk away. "The company Sloane works for," Ivy said quietly. "Whitmore Lifestyle Group. Who do you think owns it?" "Rich people, investors." "It's owned by a holding company, Sterling Enterprises." She paused. "Do you know who owns Sterling?" I shook my head. "Someone who cares about how people are treated, someone who believes respect should go both ways, no matter what job you do or where you come from." The way she said it made me pay attention, real attention. "What are you trying to tell me?" "I'm trying to tell you that last night didn't happen in a vacuum, that there are people watching, people who care about the culture in their companies." "What kind of people?" Ivy leaned forward. "The kind who might be interested in making sure Grant Ellison faces some consequences for his behavior, quietly, professionally, through proper channels." "You're talking about getting him fired." "I'm talking about accountability, performance reviews, leadership assessments, the kind of routine business practices that happen all the time in well-run companies." I stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know that you're not powerless, that what happened last night doesn't have to be the end of the story." My coffee had gone cold. The diner hummed around us with the sound of ordinary people living ordinary lives. But this conversation was anything but ordinary. "What would you need from me?" "Nothing dramatic. No scenes. No confrontations. Just let the process work." "What process?" "Reviews are already scheduled. Budget access is already being tiered based on performance. Standard business practices." She paused. "The kind of things that happen when ownership decides it's time to clean house." Ownership. She kept coming back to that word. Who really owns Sterling Enterprises? Ivy smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. "Someone who might surprise you." She stood up, left a 10 on the table. "I'll be in touch." I watched her walk away, professional, confident, a woman who knew things other people didn't. I sat in that booth for another 20 minutes, drinking cold coffee and thinking about what she'd said. Someone who might surprise you. My phone buzzed. Sloan, can we have dinner tonight? At home? I looked at the text for a long time. Then I typed back, your place or mine? Yours, if that's okay. I almost smiled. Almost. 7 o'clock. I'll order Chinese. Because if we were going to talk about respect and consequences and the future of our marriage, we were going to do it on neutral ground, where the only person who could pretend to be something they weren't was me, and I was getting tired of pretending. The afternoon passed slow at the shop. I worked on a transmission for Mrs. Rodriguez's Honda, changed the oil in Tommy Park's pickup, fixed a starter for a guy who paid in cash and didn't ask for a receipt. Honest work, fair prices, no games. But my mind kept drifting back to Ivy and her careful words about ownership and accountability and processes that were already in motion. Someone who might surprise you. What did that mean? And why did I have the feeling my whole world was about to turn upside down? 7 o'clock couldn't come fast enough, and at the same time, it was coming way too fast. Because something told me that after tonight, nothing would ever be the same again. Chinese takeout containers sat on the folding table in my garage apartment. Sweet and sour pork, fried rice, and egg rolls that were still warm from the restaurant down the street. The kind of meal that cost $12 and tasted like home. Sloane sat across from me on a wooden crate, looking more relaxed than I'd seen her in weeks. No heels, no makeup, just jeans and a sweater and hair pulled back in a ponytail like the day we met. "Remember this place?" she asked, gesturing around the small apartment above my shop. "You mean where we're sitting right now?" She laughed. Real laughter this time, not the bright fake sound from last night's party. "I mean, remember when you first brought me here? I thought you were crazy, living above a garage." I remembered, 3 months after we started dating, she'd climbed the narrow stairs like she was exploring a foreign country, looked around at my secondhand furniture and motorcycle magazines and the single window that faced the alley behind the building. "You made me coffee in that terrible little pot," she said, pointing to the camping percolator I still used. "Worst coffee I'd ever tasted. You drank 3 cups. I was nervous." "About what?" "About liking it here." "About liking you." She picked at her fried rice with plastic chopsticks. "About what that meant for everything else in my life." We ate in comfortable quiet for a while. The radio played soft music from a station that didn't care about demographics, just good songs for people who needed something real to listen to. "Marcus," she said finally, "about last night, I want you to know that I apologize," I said. "That's what I need. A real apology." She set down her chopsticks. "I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was scared. Because I've worked so hard to get where I am, and I was afraid one wrong move would destroy everything." I looked at her across the small table. My wife, who'd built herself a career in a world that didn't make room for people like us, who'd climbed every ladder and jumped every hurdle and earned every dollar in her bank account. "I get that," I said, "but where does that leave me?" "I don't know. I wish I did, but I don't know." Her phone lit up with a text. She glanced at it and frowned. "Work?" I asked. "Grant, he wants to meet early tomorrow. Something about important optics." She put the phone face down. "Can we not talk about work tonight?" I nodded, because this felt good. This felt like us, before the penthouse and the parties and the careful distance that had grown between what she wanted and what I needed. We finished eating, and I cleared the containers while she sat on my old couch, looking through a photo album I kept on the coffee table. Pictures from before the money and the status and the complications. "Look at this," she said, holding up a photo from our second date. "Your shirt." I looked over her shoulder. There I was, grinning at the camera in a work shirt with a patch over the pocket. Marcus stitched in blue thread above it. "You were so proud of that shirt," she said. "Still am." "I know. That's what I She stopped, started again. That's what I fell in love with. How proud you were of your work. How you never apologized for who you were. And now? Now I feel like I'm asking you to apologize every day. She leaned back against me, and for a moment it was like the last 3 years had been a dream. Like we were still just Marcus and Sloane, figuring out how to build something real together. I miss this, she whispered. Miss what? Being proud of you instead of worried about you. That hurt, but it was honest hurt. The kind that comes from telling the truth instead of dancing around it. I put my arms around her and we sat there listening to the radio and the distant sound of traffic and the honest quiet of two people who still loved each other but weren't sure how to make it work. Can we try? She asked. To find our way back to this? I don't know if there is a way back. What do you mean? I mean, maybe we have to find a way forward instead. Something new. She turned to look at me. What would that look like? Before I could answer, her phone lit up again. This time, she ignored it. But I saw Grant's name on the screen, and the spell was broken. You should probably get that, I said. It can wait. But we both knew it couldn't. Not really, because Grant's calls always came first in her world, and that was the problem we couldn't solve with Chinese takeout and old photographs. She checked the message anyway. Important huddle tomorrow, 8 a.m. Optics. She read aloud. Then she looked at me. What do you think that means? I think it means your boss wants to control the story about what happened last night. What story? Nothing happened. Something happened, Sloane. You know it, and I know it, and he knows it. She was quiet for a long moment. What should I do? That's up to you. What would you do? I'd tell him that how he talks to my husband matters to me, and if he can't treat you with respect, he can't expect to get it back. Even if it cost me my job? Especially then. She stared at the phone like it was a bomb with a countdown timer. I'm not as brave as you think I am. You're braver than you think you are. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it, and from the look on her face, neither was she. We spent the night on my narrow couch, holding each other like we were trying to stop time. But morning came anyway, bringing Grant's meeting and all the choices Sloane would have to make. When she left for work, she kissed me slow and soft, like she was trying to remember something important. I love you, she said. I love you too. And that was true. But love wasn't going to be enough to fix what was broken between us. Only respect could do that, and respect was the one thing she couldn't seem to give me when it mattered most. The next morning brought news I wasn't ready for. I was under the hood of a '92 Camaro replacing a water pump when my phone buzzed. Text message from Deshaun. Call me when you get this. Important. I wiped my hands and called him back. You sitting down? He asked. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, but you need to know something about your wife. My stomach dropped. What about her? I got added to a group chat by mistake, towing referral thing. But before I got removed, I saw something you should see. What kind of something? A screenshot from Sloane to her friend. The garage suddenly felt too small. What did it say? I just need him not to embarrass me. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I sat down hard on a milk crate. You sure it was her? Her name was on it. Timestamp from yesterday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon. While I was working on Mrs. Rodriguez's transmission and thinking about Chinese takeout and second chances. Marcus, you still there? Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, man. I thought about not telling you, but no, you did right. I hung up and stared at the Camaro's engine. All those parts working together, each one doing its job. When one part failed, the whole thing stopped running. I just need him not to embarrass me, not love me, not support me, not stand by me, just don't embarrass me. I closed the hood and walked upstairs to my apartment. Sat on the couch where we'd held each other last night and lied to each other about trying to find our way back. My phone buzzed. Sloan, how's your day going? I stared at the text for a long time. Then, I turned the phone off and put it in a drawer because I needed time to think about what I just need him not to embarrass me meant for the rest of my life. The next few days passed like a movie in slow motion. Sloan texted. I didn't answer. She called. I let it go to voicemail. She came by the shop twice, but I was out on test drives both times, not avoiding her, just thinking. On Thursday, Ivy sent me a message. Routine leadership reviews begin Monday. Budget access being tiered this week. All standard procedure. Standard procedure. Sure, I texted back. No special treatment for anyone. Understood. That evening, I rode my bike through the city. No destination in mind, just movement. The streets were full of people heading home from work. Real people with real problems and real solutions. I found myself parked outside Sloane's building, looking up at the lights in her penthouse windows, 42 floors up, where the air was thin and the view was perfect, and my wife was probably working late on another presentation. My wife, who needed me not to embarrass her. I started the bike and rode away into the night. Friday morning brought change in the form of official memos. Ivy's email was corporate clean and professional. 2. All staff from Chief of Staff, routine performance reviews. Sterling Enterprises will be conducting routine leadership assessments beginning Monday, December 16th. These reviews are part of our standard governance process and will include feedback from direct reports, peers, and senior management. Additionally, effective immediately, budget access will be tiered based on current project performance and leadership metrics. This change aligns with industry best practices and ensures optimal resource allocation. Thank you for your continued dedication to excellence. I read it twice. Clean, professional, no drama, just consequences disguised as corporate policy. My phone rang. Sloan. This time I answered. Did you see the memo? She asked without saying hello. I saw it. Marcus, I think this is about Grant, about what happened at the party. What makes you think that? Because he's furious. He's been calling meetings all morning, trying to figure out who's behind it. Maybe it's just routine like the memo says. Nothing is routine in this business, not when it affects budget access. She was quiet for a moment. Then, where are you? I've been trying to reach you. I've been thinking. About what? About embarrassment and what it means, and who decides what's embarrassing and what's not. Silence. Long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Marcus, I'm here. Can we talk? Tonight? Please? Where? Anywhere you want. Here. 7 o'clock. I'll bring dinner. After I hung up, I walked around my shop, touching tools and thinking about respect and consequences, and the price of loving someone who couldn't love you back the way you needed. At 6:30, I cleaned up, washed my hands twice, put on a clean shirt, set the folding table with real plates instead of paper ones, because if we were going to have the conversation that ended everything, we were going to do it right. Sloan arrived at 7 with bags from the Italian place we used to go to when we were first dating. Chicken parmesan and garlic bread and a bottle of red wine that cost more than I made in a day. She looked tired, beautiful, but tired, like someone who'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Thank you for seeing me, she said. Thank you for coming. We set the food out and poured wine and tried to pretend this was just dinner. Just a normal evening for a normal couple working through normal problems. But nothing about this felt normal anymore. The reviews started today, she said. Informal conversations, but everyone knows what they really are. And Grant's panicking. He knows he's in trouble. He just doesn't know why or how much. I took a bite of chicken and waited for her to get to the point. He asked me to help him figure out who's behind it, said I had connections he didn't know about. What did you tell him? Nothing. Because I don't know anything. She looked at me across the table. Do I? What do you think? I think someone with real power is cleaning house, and I think it started with what happened at the party. Why do you think that? Because the timing is too perfect. Because Ivy Park has been asking very specific questions about departmental culture. Because budget access doesn't get tiered overnight unless someone important decides it needs to happen. She wasn't stupid. I'd never thought she was stupid, just scared. And sometimes scared people made choices that hurt the people they loved. Sloan, I said, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think I embarrass you? She went very still. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Do you think being married to me is embarrassing? Marcus, where's this coming from? Just answer the question. She set down her fork and looked at me. Really looked at me. Sometimes. The honesty of it was like a slap. But it was honest, and that mattered. Why? Because you don't fit in my world. Because people look at us and they see something that doesn't make sense to them. Because I have to explain you instead of just being with you. And that's embarrassing. Yes, sometimes. And I hate that it is, but it is. I nodded. Okay, okay. Thank you for telling me the truth. Marcus, I don't want to feel that way. I want to be proud of you the way I used to be, the way you deserve. But you can't. Not when people are watching, not when it matters for my career. So, what does that mean for us? She was crying now, quiet tears that she wiped away with the heel of her hand. I don't know. I do. She looked up. It means you have to choose between the room where people respect your husband and the room where they don't, because I can't live in both anymore. What if I can't choose? Then you already have. We finished dinner in heavy silence. The wine sat untouched after the first glass. The food got cold while we both stared at our plates and thought about things that couldn't be unsaid. When it was time for her to leave, we stood by the door like strangers. Is this it? She asked. I don't know. Maybe. I love you. I know, I love you too. But love isn't enough anymore. She kissed my cheek and walked down the stairs to her car. I watched from the window as she drove away, taillights disappearing into the traffic. Then, I sat on my couch and thought about respect and embarrassment and the space between loving someone and being able to live with them. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Grant Ellison's access has been temporarily suspended pending review completion. Thought you should know. IP. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it and turned off the phone. Because consequences were coming, whether I was ready for them or not, and sometimes the only thing you could do was wait and see who was still standing when the dust settled. The weekend passed quiet. I worked on a '67 Mustang that had been sitting in my bay for 3 months, rebuilt the carburetor, replaced the brake lines. Honest work with honest problems and honest solutions. Saturday night, Deshaun stopped by with beer and takeout from the diner. You doing okay? He asked. Getting there. You want to talk about it? Not yet. He nodded and we ate in comfortable silence, listening to a baseball game on the radio. Sometimes the best thing a friend could do was just sit with you while you figured things out. Sunday morning brought rain and a text from Sloan. I've been thinking about what you said, about choosing rooms. I want to try to choose the right one. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, actions, not words. I know. Give me a chance to show you. Okay. But no more chances after this one. Understood. Monday morning, the real reviews began. I knew because Ivy sent me updates. Professional, discreet, Just enough information to know that the process was working. Morning interviews completed, patterns emerging, documentation in progress. Tuesday, junior staff expressing concerns about leadership culture. HR taking notes. Wednesday, budget access review revealing interesting resource allocation decisions. Thursday, external consultant brought in to assess departmental dynamics. Friday, preliminary findings ready for board review next week. I read each message and then deleted it. Because this wasn't about me anymore. This was about a system finally working the way it was supposed to work. Justice without drama, consequences without scenes, the way it should be. Saturday morning, Sloan called. Grant's been suspended, she said. I heard. Marcus, what's happening? Who's doing this? Does it matter? It matters to me because if this is about us, about what happened at the party, then I need to know. Why? Because I need to decide what I'm going to do about it. What do you mean? They want me to testify about departmental culture, about leadership effectiveness. Her voice was shaky. About Grant. This was it. The moment when she'd have to choose between protecting him and protecting us. What are you going to say? I asked. I don't know. What should I say? The truth. What if the truth hurts my career? What if lying hurts your marriage? Silence, long and heavy. I'll call you after, she said finally. Okay. Marcus? Yeah? I'm going to choose the right room this time. We'll see. Because I'd heard promises before, and promises were just words until they became actions, and actions were the only things that mattered anymore. Monday would bring Sloane's testimony, and with it, the choice that would determine whether we had a future together or just a past worth remembering. I spent Sunday working on the Mustang and thinking about roads that led away from everything familiar towards something new and unknown, because sometimes the only way forward was through the place you were most afraid to go. And I was about to find out which room my wife would choose to stand in when it really mattered. The engine of the Mustang purred like a satisfied cat when I turned the key. All those hours of work, and now it ran like it was meant to run. Some things could be fixed, others just had to be rebuilt from scratch. Time would tell which category my marriage fell into. Monday morning came too early and not early enough. I'd been awake since 4, lying on my narrow couch and listening to the city wake up. Garbage trucks, early commuters, the honest sounds of people starting another day of work. By 6, I gave up on sleep, made coffee in the little percolator, sat by the window watching the sun come up over the buildings across the alley. Today, Sloan would testify about Grant. Today, she'd choose which room to stand in. And today, I'd find out if our marriage was worth saving or just worth remembering. I was under the hood of a Honda Civic when she came by. 7:30 in the morning, wearing a black suit that made her look like she was going to a funeral. Maybe she was. Hi, she said. Hi? The testimony is at 10. I know. I wanted to see you first, before. I wiped my hands on a rag and really looked at her. My wife, standing in my garage in her lawyer clothes, looking scared and determined at the same time. You ready? I asked. No, but I'm going anyway. Good. She walked closer, careful not to brush against anything that might stain her suit. Marcus, I want you to know something. Whatever happens today, whatever I say in there, it won't be because I don't love you. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I think you believe I chose them over you, but I never chose them. I just chose myself, my career, my comfort. And now? Now I'm choosing us, even if it costs me everything else. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But I'd heard promises before. Actions, I said, not words. She nodded. Actions. She left without kissing me goodbye. Maybe because she was afraid it would feel too much like the last time. I went back to work on the Honda. Simple problem. Dirty fuel injector. Clean it out, put it back, everything runs smooth again. If only marriages were that easy to fix. At 9:30, my phone buzzed. Text from Ivy. Beginning in 30 minutes. Wish us luck. Us. Interesting choice of words. I put the phone away and tried to focus on work. But my mind kept drifting to a conference room across town where my wife was about to decide our future. The call came at noon. It's done, Sloane said. Her voice sounded hollow, empty. How did it go? I told them the truth about Grant, about the culture in the department, about what I saw and what I didn't do to stop it. And? And I probably don't have a job anymore. I sat down on a milk crate. What exactly did you say? I said Grant created a hostile environment for employees who didn't fit his image of success. I said he made comments about race and class that had no place in any workplace. I said I failed to address it because I was more concerned with my career than with doing what was right. Jesus, Sloane. I said I watched my husband get humiliated at a company party and I did nothing to stop it. I said that made me complicit. My throat felt tight. You really said that? Every word. They recorded it all. What happens now? Now, I wait to see if I still have a career, or if I threw it all away to save a marriage that might already be over. We were both quiet for a long moment. Sloane? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For choosing the right room. She started crying then. I could hear it through the phone. Quiet tears, like she'd been holding them back all morning. I should have done it sooner, she said. You did it now. That's what matters. Is it enough? For us? I looked around my garage, at the tools hanging on their hooks, at the cars waiting to be fixed, at the life I'd built with my own hands. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but it's a start. After we hung up, I called Deshawn. You heard? I asked. Word travels fast in this business. She really threw Gran under the bus? She told the truth about time. That afternoon, more news trickled in. Grant had been called to a meeting. HR was involved. Security was standing by. By 5 o'clock, it was over. Grant Ellison was no longer employed by Whitmore Lifestyle Group. His access was revoked. His office was being cleaned out. No drama, no scenes, just consequences, delivered professionally and quietly, the way justice should work. I was closing up the shop when Sloane's car pulled into the alley. She got out slowly, like she was tired down to her bones. How are you feeling? I asked. Like I jumped off a cliff and I'm still falling. Any word on your job? They're reviewing my status. Corporate speak for we'll let you know if you're fired. She looked around the garage like she was seeing it for the first time. The oil stains on the concrete, the calendar with half-dressed women holding wrenches, the pyramid of empty beer cans by the workbench. Can I stay here tonight? She asked. Why? Because the penthouse feels like a museum, and I don't want to be alone with all that glass and marble and silence. There's only the couch. That's okay. I've gotten used to sleeping alone anyway. That stung, but it was honest, and we were finally being honest with each other. Okay, I said, but I don't have fancy coffee or Egyptian cotton sheets or room service. I know. That's why I want to stay. We ordered pizza and sat on my old couch, eating out of the box. No plates, no wine, no pretense. What happens now? She asked. Now you figure out who you want to be when nobody's watching. What if I don't know? Then you experiment until you do. She curled up against my side like she used to when we were first dating. Before the money and the status and the careful distance between who she was and who she thought she should be. I'm scared, she said. Of what? Of losing everything, my job, my family, you. You're not going to lose me. How do you know? Because you chose the right room today, and that matters to me. What if it's not enough? What if I can't change? What if I go back to being the person who cares more about image than respect? Then I'll leave. She pulled back to look at me. Just like that? Just like that. Because I won't live like that anymore. I can't. And if I can change, if I can be the person you need me to be, then we'll figure it out. Together. She nodded and settled back against me. Fair enough. We fell asleep on the couch, holding each other like we were afraid one of us might disappear if we let go. The next morning brought coffee from my terrible percolator and news from Ivy. Grant officially terminated. Investigation ongoing. Your wife's testimony was illuminating. I showed Sloane the text. Illuminating, she repeated. That's one word for it. Any regrets? Ask me next week when I know if I still have a paycheck. But she didn't sound like she regretted it. She sounded relieved, like she'd finally put down something heavy she'd been carrying for too long. The call came Wednesday morning. Sloane was in her car, driving to a job interview at a smaller firm across town. Her phone rang through the Bluetooth. Sloane, this is Patricia Chen from HR. Sloane pulled over, put the car in park. Hi, Patricia. I'm calling about your employment status. The board has completed their review. I could see Sloane's hands shaking on the steering wheel. She'd put the call on speaker so I could hear. And? Your honesty during the investigation was noted and appreciated. However, given the circumstances and the need for the department to rebuild its culture, the board feels a fresh start would be beneficial for everyone. Corporate speak for you're fired. I understand, Sloane said, her voice steady. You'll receive a full severance package, of course, and excellent references for future opportunities. Thank you. Sloane, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. It just came at a cost. After Patricia hung up, Sloane sat in her car for a long time. Then she started laughing. I got fired, she said. How does that feel? Terrifying and free. Is that weird? No, that's honest. She turned off the car and leaned back in her seat. My mother is going to have a stroke. Probably. My trust fund will keep us afloat for a while, but I'll need to find something new. Something different. What do you want to do? I don't know. For the first time in my life, I don't have a 5-year plan. She looked at me. Is that okay? That's perfect. That evening, we had dinner at the diner where Ivy and I had met. Burgers and fries and coffee that had been sitting too long. Real food for real people having real conversations. I've been thinking, Sloane said, stealing a fry from my plate. About what? About what you said. About choosing rooms. I think I've been in the wrong room for a long time. What room do you want to be in now? The one where my husband fixes cars and I'm proud of him for it. Where people respect us both because we respect each other. That room doesn't come with a penthouse. I know, that's okay. Or a trust fund lifestyle. I know that too. Or your mother's approval. Definitely not that. I reached across the table and took her hand. You sure about this? More sure than I've been about anything in years. 2 weeks later, we found a small house in a neighborhood where people knew their neighbors' names. It had a garage with space for 2 cars and a kitchen with windows that faced east toward the morning sun. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Sloane found work at a nonprofit that helped small businesses get started. The pay was half what she'd made before, but she came home smiling instead of exhausted. Victoria came for dinner exactly once. She spent the entire evening looking around our modest house like she was visiting a foreign country. When she left, she kissed Sloane's cheek and said nothing about when she'd see us again. We both knew the answer was probably never. You okay with that? I asked after her car disappeared down our street. I'm okay with it, Sloane said. Some rooms are too expensive to stay in. Deshaun became a regular at our dinner table. He and Sloane discovered they both loved terrible reality TV shows and argued about them like they were serious politics. It was good to watch my wife laugh at something that didn't cost anything. Ivy sent a card when we moved. Simple, professional. Congratulations on choosing well. Inside was a business card, not hers, someone else's, someone with a title that included the words majority owner and Sterling Enterprises. I looked at the name for a long time. Then I put the card in the drawer with the takeout menus and forgot about it. Because some secrets were meant to stay buried. 6 months later, we were sitting on our front porch drinking coffee and watching the sun come up over the neighborhood. It was Saturday morning. No schedules, no meetings, no image to maintain. Do you miss it? I asked. Miss what? The penthouse, the parties, the life you had before. She thought about it for a minute. I miss feeling important. You are important. I know, but I miss feeling important to important people. And now I'm important to people who matter to me. That's different. Better, I think, but different. A kid rode by on his bike, throwing newspapers onto front porches. He waved at us like we were part of the neighborhood, like we belonged. Sloane? Yeah? Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for waiting for me to figure out how. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the street wake up. Ordinary people starting ordinary days in ordinary houses with ordinary problems. It was perfect. My phone buzzed. Text message from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Cole, this is James Martinez from Martinez Family Auto. I heard you do excellent work. Would you be interested in a consultation on expanding my shop? I can pay your usual rate. I showed Sloane the text. Your usual rate, she said, grinning. You have a usual rate for consulting? Apparently, I do now. What are you going to tell him? I typed back. Happy to help. When would you like to meet? Because I was learning that respect earned quietly was worth more than recognition given loudly. And sometimes the best revenge was just living well. 2 weeks later, I was in my shop working on a classic Mustang when a familiar car pulled into the alley. Black BMW, dealer plates. Grant Ellison got out of the passenger seat. He looked older, tired, like a man who'd lost something important and was still figuring out what to do about it. Marcus? I didn't look up from the engine. Shop's closed. I know, I'm not here for car repair. Then what do you want? He walked closer but kept his distance. I wanted to apologize. Now I looked up. For what? For what I said at the party. For how I treated you. It was wrong. I set down my wrench and really looked at him. The suit was cheaper now. The confidence was gone. He looked like a man who'd learned something hard about consequences. Why now? I asked. Because I've had time to think about what I lost and why I lost it. And what did you lose? Everything. Job, reputation, respect. He paused. The ability to look at myself in the mirror without feeling sick. I nodded. That's a lot. It is. And I deserve to lose it all. We stood there in the quiet of the garage, two men who'd been on opposite sides of something that changed everything. Apology accepted, I said finally. Thank you. Grant? Yeah? Next time, try treating people with respect before you need their forgiveness. He nodded. I'll remember that. After he left, I went back to work on the Mustang. But I was thinking about redemption and second chances, and whether people could really change or just learn to hide their worst parts better. Time would tell, I supposed. It always did. That evening, Sloane and I sat on our porch again, watching the neighborhood settle into night, lights coming on in windows, families gathering around dinner tables, the ordinary magic of people who'd chosen to build something real together. Grant came by the shop today, I told her. What did he want? To apologize. Did you accept it? Yeah. Good. Forgiveness is lighter than anger. Where'd you learn that? From watching you carry both. A car drove by slowly, the driver looking for an address. It was a nice car, expensive, but it didn't stop. Just drove past our modest house with its front porch light and its ordinary happiness. Some mornings, cars like that still drove down our street, looking for something, searching for someone, but they never stopped. Because the man they were looking for had learned something important about the difference between being seen and being respected. And respect, real respect, was something you earned in the quiet moments when nobody important was watching. That was enough for me. It was everything. 1 year later, I was rebuilding a 1969 Dodge Charger when the call came that changed everything. Mr. Cole? The voice was unfamiliar, professional. This is Rebecca Santos from Sterling Enterprises. Ms. Park asked me to reach out about a matter requiring your attention. I set down my socket wrench and walked to the quiet corner of my garage. What kind of matter? A board meeting, sir. Tomorrow at 10. There are some decisions that require your input. My input. After a year of staying in the background, letting Ivy handle the day-to-day operations while I fixed cars and pretended to be just another small business owner. Is there a problem? Not a problem, sir. An opportunity. But it would be better discussed in person. I looked around my garage, at the charger with its engine spread across 3 workbenches, at the calendar where Mrs. Patterson had circled next Thursday in red ink because her Honda was making that noise again. This was my world now. Simple, honest, real. But some responsibilities couldn't be ignored forever. I'll be there, I said. That evening, I sat Sloane down at our kitchen table and told her the truth. All of it, about Sterling Enterprises, about the holding company that owned her old firm, about the quiet power I'd inherited from my Uncle Raymond, who'd built an empire and left it to the nephew who'd rather work with his hands than count money. She listened without interrupting. Her face went through surprise, understanding, and something that might have been pride. You own the company, she said when I finished. The whole time. Majority share. Uncle Raymond left it to me when he died 5 years ago. I tried to stay out of the business side, but Grant forced your hand. He forced something. I'm not sure it was my hand. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. That's why Ivy knew who you were, why the reviews happened so fast, why everything fell into place so perfectly. Yeah. And you never told me. I never told anyone. I just wanted to fix cars and live a quiet life. But you couldn't. Not after what happened. I reached across the table and took her hands. I could have fired him the next day, could have made a scene, could have shown up at that party and humiliated him the way he humiliated me. Why didn't you? Because that would have been about my ego. This was about something bigger, about showing that actions have consequences, that respect isn't negotiable, and about showing me what it costs to choose the wrong room. Maybe. I don't know. I just knew I couldn't let it stand. Not for me, not for you, not for anyone else who might be standing in that room next time. Sloane was crying again, but these were different tears. I'm proud of you. For what? For being the man I married, even when I forgot who that was. The next morning, I put on the one good suit I owned and drove across town to the Sterling Enterprises building. 43 floors of glass and steel reaching toward the sky like an accusation. Ivy met me in the lobby. She looked the same as always, professional, competent, but there was something softer in her eyes now. Thank you for coming, she said as we rode the elevator to the top floor. What's this really about? Growth, expansion, the kind of decisions that require vision. I'm not a vision guy, Ivy. I'm a fix what's broken guy. Sometimes they're the same thing. The boardroom was smaller than I'd expected. 12 chairs around a mahogany table that probably cost more than most people made in a year, windows that looked out over the city like the view from God's office. 5 other people were already seated. I recognized 2 faces from business magazines. The others were strangers, but they had that look of people who made important decisions before breakfast. Ladies and gentlemen, Ivy said, Marcus Cole. They stood up, all of them, like I was someone important instead of a guy who spent his days with his hands in engine oil. Mr. Cole, said a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, Patricia Whitman, head of acquisitions. We've been looking forward to meeting you. Ma'am, please sit. We have a proposition for you. For the next hour, they laid out their plan. Sterling wanted to expand into the automotive sector, not just luxury dealerships, but the whole ecosystem, independent shops, parts suppliers, training programs for mechanics. We want to build something real, Patricia explained. Something that respects the craft and the people who do it well. Why? Because there's a gap in the market. Most automotive businesses are either corporate chains that don't understand the work or small shops that can't access capital to grow. And you think I can bridge that gap? We think you understand both worlds. You know quality work and you have access to resources. I looked around the table at these people in their expensive clothes, talking about my world like they wanted to enter it instead of exploit it. What would this look like? Partnership program with independent shops, fair terms, real support, quality standards that mean something. Patricia slid a folder across the table. We'd start with 50 shops in 5 cities, grow from there. And who would run it? You would, if you wanted to. The folder sat in front of me like a test. Inside were business plans and financial projections and the kind of documents that turned ideas into empires. I need time to think about it. Of course. But Marcus, Ivy leaned forward. This could help a lot of people. Shop owners who are struggling, young mechanics who need better training, communities that deserve quality service. I know. And you could still work with your hands. This would be about supporting other people who do the same work you do. That night, Sloane and I walked through our neighborhood while I told her about the meeting, past the Martinez family's house where the kids were playing basketball in the driveway, past Mr. Chen's garden where he grew vegetables and shared them with anyone who asked. What do you think? I asked. I think you already know what you want to do. Do I? You've been building something like this already, one customer at a time, one favor at a time, one act of respect at a time. We stopped at the corner where the streetlight made a circle of yellow on the pavement. This was our world now. Small, manageable, safe. It would mean travel, meetings, being the kind of person who makes decisions about other people's lives. It would also mean helping people who do the work you love, people like Deshawn who are trying to build something real. And you'd be okay with that? With me being gone more? With the complications? Marcus, I married a man who believes in doing right by people. If this is how you do right by more people, then I'm proud to be part of it. 3 weeks later, I signed the papers that made me president of Sterling Automotive Solutions. Not because I wanted power, but because I wanted to use whatever power I had to build something that mattered. The first shop we partnered with was Deshawn's. He'd been struggling to compete with the chain stores, working 16-hour days just to keep the lights on. You sure about this? He asked when I showed him the contract. I'm sure about you. What if I mess it up? Then we'll figure out how to fix it. That's what we do. 6 months later, Deshawn had hired 3 new employees and moved to a bigger location. His kids stopped asking if they'd have to move because daddy's business was failing. That was worth all the meetings and paperwork and corporate politics in the world. The program grew. Slowly at first, then faster as word spread that we were different, that we actually cared about quality work and fair treatment and the people who made it all possible. I still spent 2 days a week in my own garage, Still got my hands dirty. Still worked on Mrs. Patterson's Honda when it made that noise. But now I also spent time visiting shops across the country, meeting mechanics who'd been written off by everyone else, listening to their ideas about how to make things better. It was good work, hard work, the kind that made you tired in your body but satisfied in your soul. One evening, almost 2 years after that first board meeting, I was working late in my garage when an expensive car pulled into the alley. Black Mercedes, new enough to still smell like success. Grant Ellison got out of the passenger seat, but this time he wasn't alone. A teenager climbed out of the driver's side, maybe 17, with Grant's eyes but none of his old arrogance. Marcus, Grant's voice was different now, humble. This is my son, Michael. He's interested in learning about cars. The kid stepped forward and held out his hand. Mr. Cole, Dad says you're the best mechanic in the city. I shook his hand. Firm grip, eye contact, good manners. Your dad's being generous. What kind of cars interest you? All of them? I like how things work, how they fit together. For the next hour, I showed Michael around the garage, explained how engines worked, let him hold tools and ask questions. He listened the way good students listen, like every word mattered. Could I? He paused, looked at his father. Could I maybe work here sometime, just weekends? I don't need money, I just want to learn. I looked at Grant, at this man who'd lost everything and was trying to build something better from the pieces. You okay with him getting dirty? I'm okay with him learning honest work. Then we'll see. Come by Saturday morning. Wear old clothes. Michael's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? Really? But you'll start with cleaning tools and sweeping floors. Glamorous stuff comes later. After they left, I called Sloan. Grant brought his kid by, wants him to learn about cars. What did you tell him? I told him to come back Saturday. You think that's wise? I think everyone deserves a chance to teach their kids something better than they learned growing up. Even Grant? Especially Grant. Saturday morning, Michael showed up at 7:30, sharp, work boots, old jeans, and enthusiasm that could power a small city. What do you want me to do first? He asked. Organize the tool bench. Everything has a place. When you're done, I'll show you why that matters. He worked without complaining, asked good questions, listened to the answers. By noon, he'd earned the right to help me change the oil in a customer's truck. Why is it important to do it right? I asked while he watched me drain the old oil. Because someone's depending on this truck to work. And because if I mess up, it's not just my mistake, it hurts someone else. Smart kid. He was going to be just fine. That afternoon, while Michael swept the garage floor like it was the most important job in the world, I thought about redemption and second chances and the way small kindnesses could ripple out into something bigger. Grant had lost his job and his reputation and his comfortable assumptions about how the world worked, but he'd gained something too, the chance to raise a son who understood respect and hard work and the value of doing things right. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. 5 years after that night on the rooftop, I was sitting in my office at Sterling, a real office with windows and a secretary and everything, when Ivy knocked on the door. Got a minute? She asked. For you? Always. She sat down across from my desk and smiled. I have news. Good news or bad news? That depends on how you feel about recognition. I groaned. What kind of recognition? Business Journal wants to do a feature on Sterling Automotive, small business success story, the little guy who made it big without forgetting where he came from. Can we say no? We could, but Marcus, what you've built here, it's helping thousands of people, shop owners, mechanics, customers who are getting honest work at fair prices. Don't you think their stories deserve to be told? I looked out my window at the city below. Somewhere down there, Deshaun was teaching a new employee how to change brake pads. Michael Ellison was starting his second year at automotive tech school. Mrs. Patterson was getting her Honda serviced by people who cared about doing good work. Okay, I said, but I have conditions. Name them. The story isn't about me. It's about the mechanics and shop owners who do the real work. I'm just the guy who writes the checks. Deal. And no photos of me in a suit. If they want pictures, I'm in my garage clothes with my hands dirty. Also, deal. And if they ask about that night at the party, you tell them that sometimes the best revenge is building something better. The article came out 6 months later. 3 pages about Sterling Automotive and the quiet revolution happening in garages across the country, about respect and quality work and the difference between profit and progress. There was one picture of me, in coveralls, showing a young mechanic how to rebuild a transmission. I looked like what I was, a man who'd found a way to make his living matter. The day the magazine hit the stands, my phone rang. The caller ID said, Sloane's mom. I almost didn't answer. Marcus, this is Victoria. Hello, Victoria. I saw the article about your business. Okay. I wanted to. I owe you an apology. That got my attention. For what? For underestimating you. For thinking that working with your hands made you somehow less. Victoria, please let me finish. I was wrong. Not just about you, but about what matters. About what success really looks like. She paused, and I heard something I'd never heard before in her voice. Humility. I'm proud of what you've built, and I'm proud of my daughter for being smart enough to marry you. Thank you. Would you would you and Sloane like to come for dinner sometime? I promise to use the regular dishes. I almost laughed. We'd like that. Good. I'll call Sloane to set it up. After she hung up, I sat in my office thinking about time and change and the way people could surprise you if you gave them long enough. Maybe Victoria had learned something from watching her daughter choose love over image. Maybe seeing Sloane happy in a modest house with a man who worked with his hands had taught her something about what really mattered. Or maybe she'd just read the article and realized that the mechanic she'd looked down on was worth more than she'd ever imagined. Either way, it was progress. That evening, I found Sloane on our front porch, reading the magazine article for the third time. Proud of you? She said without looking up. For what, this time? For staying true to who you are, even when it would have been easier to become someone else. I sat down next to her and looked out at our neighborhood. 5 years of living here, and it still felt like home. Real home, not just an address where we kept our stuff. Your mom called. I heard, dinner invitation, among other things. You okay with that? I'm okay with second chances. For everyone. A car drove by slowly. Nice car, but not too nice. The driver waved at us like neighbors do when they recognize each other. Some mornings, expensive cars still cruised down our street, looking for the address they'd heard about. The mechanic who'd built something bigger than anyone expected. But now when they stopped, it was to ask about honest work at fair prices, about partnership opportunities with Sterling Automotive, about the kind of success that lifted everyone up instead of pushing others down. That was better than revenge. That was justice. Sloane? Yeah? Thank you for choosing the right room. Thank you for showing me which room that was. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over our neighborhood, over the life we'd built together, over the future that stretched ahead like an open road. In the distance, I could hear the sound of someone working on a car, engine running rough, then smooth as the problem got fixed. The sound of honest work being done right. It was the most beautiful sound in the world, and it was enough. It was everything.